low. We're having a bonanza of videos at the moment, but I was inspired to look at the chart for Austria, particularly in light of what's going on. Very interesting to see all the major protests over the weekend. If you haven't seen the clips, please go to the UK column website. They had a wonderful montage of the protest in Austria, Vienna, and I think in Linz in Austria as well. Plus there was an amazing turnout in Australia, Perth, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, London, Leeds, Totnes, all over the UK. I think Rome, Croatia, very big protests as well. So things are really gearing up. I think the big problem is, crossing fingers and touch wood, I think they've underestimated us. I think after they saw Brexit and Trump, I think they got a fright and they realized the power of social media. They realized people weren't listening to the experts anymore. They realized that their hacks in the mainstream just weren't cutting it. Talking about hacks in the mainstream, please look at my BitChute channel. I put a link there because I did a little takedown of a certain TV show where they were discussing things which I thought were entirely authoritarian, but not appropriate for YouTube. But they underestimated how much people are A, interested in politics, B, how many ordinary people produce smashing content that really engages people and people find interesting and people find a release and an outlet. I think they didn't realize people did understand what was going on, that people have a great ability to comprehend philosophical, political, anthropological, and behavioral psychology in terms of how it's all affecting us. I think they underestimated us, and I think that's their Achilles heel. And even after Brexit and Trump, they thought just, oh, we'll get rid of InfoWars and they'll get rid of a few channels and that'll be it and everyone will go back. Well, you know, it's kind of like once you've watched, I don't know, once you've watched, whether it's Alex Jones, David Icke, you know, whoever your favorite is, you ain't gonna go back to Sky News and BBC, seriously. It would be like, you know, being Olympic swimmer and going back to baby wings in the paddling pool. It's just not gonna happen. So let's just look at Austria's chart before I get on now. I also am going to look at Australia's chart because I know an awful lot of you in the land down under are interested in what I have to say in Australia. Now, in terms of Austria and Australia, things aren't looking good, but I was cautiously optimistic after looking at both charts. So as I say, holding fingers, crossing thumbs, they've underestimated us. And I think they've gone too hard, too fast. I think the wheels are coming off their narrative. I think they were far too reliant on traditional methods of manipulation, propagandizing, and control. And I think they may have invented the internet, DARPA, and whatever. They lost control over it. And I just don't think they anticipated the ingenuity and the resilience of people in the alternate spheres. The resilience, that's their word, eh? They've always got sustainability, resilience, diversity. Well, actually, we've got a lot of diversity, huge diversity in opinion, in cultural influence. A lot of us are coming together. Don't worry, we've got true diversity. We're across the board, and we see you. We know there's no diversity at the top, for sure. We got diversity, we've got sustainability, and we've got resilience. So I urge you all, instead of buying that pizza or that Starbucks coffee, donate to your favorite channel. You know, buy some InfoWars products or donate to UK column or subscribe or become a Patreon. Support people in the alternate media. That's part of the war. I mean, if you're just watching it, that's not really enough. You need to be putting your money where your mouth is. And it doesn't, just think, you would have spent that money on a globalist enterprise, wouldn't you? So just spend it somewhere more sensible. So I'm really interested. Let's first look at Austria's chart. Now this chart is for 12 November 1918. Taurus ascendant with Venus in Scorpio on the descendant, as you see there. I'm immediately interested in this Taurus ascendant because, you know, Austria has actually been a pivotal country. They're a landlocked country, but in many ways they're on the frontier. At the time of the Habsburg Empire, it was Vienna. It means nothing to me, Vienna. Or you guys, you remember Ultravox from the 80s? So it was on the frontier of Islam and Christianity. I mean, Vienna was basically the place where the battle was fought to keep the Muslim influence and maintain Christian influence, other than Spain on the southwest, of course. But Vienna was very important. And during the Cold War, Austria was on the kind of border between the Soviet states, or the Eastern Bloc states, the Iron Curtain, and the West. And I believe that there was an awful lot of interaction between spies and double agents and people that used to go on in Vienna. It was kind of a meeting place where East met West, and things that were exchanged under the radar kind of happened there. A lot of cloak and dagger. So that's interesting. And World War One, it was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand in Austria that kicked off World War One. Then we had, of course, Anschluss in World War II, Austria being annexed by Germany. So Austria's always been there, and you would expect that from a Taurus country, Taurus rising country, because it's actually an Aquarius, but a Taurus rising, sorry, it's a Scorpio, what am I talking about? You would expect that from a Scorpio country with Taurus rising, because Taurus was always there in advance when it comes to revolution. Way back when, one of my first videos was called Taurus, and it was popes, queens, revolutionaries, and dictators. And it's how people who are Taurus have really always shaped the world. I mean, we're talking about Hitler, the Pope, the current queen. I'm not saying she shaped the world, but she's been around a long time. Thomas Cromwell, all these interesting Taurians that have Catherine de Medici, or Catherine the Great in Russia. They have a big role, as do Taurus countries. So I keep calling it a Taurus country. Scorpio country, Taurus rising, the Taurus influence gives it this pivotal role. So I don't think there's any question why we found Austria center stage at the moment. Now, Austria, a mountainous, a very beautiful country. Taurus rising, and we also have the second house of money, ruled by Mercury, which is in Sagittarius, the lucky house. It is one of the very prosperous countries. Austria, high standard of living, high kind of GDP, if you want to use that measure. You know I don't agree with it, etc. But interestingly, it also has something very significant. The sun in Scorpio, at 19 degrees of Scorpio, is square to Uranus in Aquarius, opposing Saturn here in Leo. So this is almost a square, but with a wide angle between the sun and Saturn, but it's, it kind of passes, doesn't it? So we have this fixed square, and again a fixed sign of Taurus on the ascendant. That kind of gives us this authoritarian feel, and that's why certain things in history have happened in Austria, and it's also why this is happening there now. So I just say another thing about Austria. What else is it known for? Well, one of the things is music and its composers. And I thought I'd just read you a little list, because Taurus, obviously, is the planet of music. And Moon in Pisces, also very, very musical. And Austria has given us some fantastic music. It's the Baroque is Austria. And also, like a Ludwig van Beethoven spent a lot of his life in Vienna. We've also got people like Haydn, Joseph Haydn, Michael Haydn, Franz Liszt, Franz Schubert, Anton Bruckner, Strauss Sr. and Strauss Jr. We had the Second Viennese School with Arnold Schubert, Anton Verben, Alban Berg. I think Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born in Salzburg, which was later part of Austria. Now, these people came before this chart, just to say, a couple of hundred years before, but still, it's kind of reflected in the chart, this history in music. And who else we've got here? Let's go. Art and architecture is something that Austria is also known for, and definitely with midheaven in Capricorn. That's the sign of the architect. Taurus gives us the aesthetics, the beauty. It's a very beautiful, well-maintained, quite an orderly country, and quite friendly and welcoming as well. Lots of painters. Of course, there we've got Pisces Moon, like Ferdinand George, Waldmüller, Rudolf von Old, Hans Markt, Gustav Klimt. I mean, there's a whole list. You can see it on Wikipedia. So Schwarzenegger comes from there, but we think we'll forget about that. In terms of science and philosophy, now look at this. Pluto and Jupiter in the third house, the intellectual house. What is Pluto all about? It's science, also psychology. And there were many famous Austrian psychiatrists, but also a focus of Austrian science has always been medicine and psychology, starting in medieval times. Hence there, Pluto in the third house. Eminent physicians like Theodor Billroth, Clemens von Pirey, Anton von Eiselberg, and also the home of Sigmund Freud. Alfred Adler, the founder of individual psychology, other psychologists like Paul Wolfowitz, Hans Asperger, blah, blah, blah. And very importantly, I'm a very big fan of Austrian economics, as are most people on our side of the argument, the populist side. So it's something else that very important in Austria. So there we have, represented by Pluto and Jupiter in the third, all the science we've got, and Taurus and Moon in Pisces with the music. So you can see this flavor we're getting. We also have Sun on the 7th. They've made some powerful alliances. Prior to this chart, of course, we have the Austro-Hungarian Empire, very powerful, closely aligned with Germany, one of the most powerful countries in the world. 3 planets here representing how strongly involved it is in things like the UN. It's a country that's seeking to make partnerships, and that's been part of its history. Yeah, we've got Mars in the 8th here, which again plays into this kind of slightly authoritarian controlling structure and theme that they have. A lot of people regard Uranus as quite right-wing, so Uranus in the 11th means a tendency to right-wing politics. I don't really see right-wing that way, actually, but some people regard right-wing as kind of very top-down, authoritarian, blah, 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 and they would say that is signified by Uranus in its ruling sign of Aquarius there. Okay, so in the green, I've got the transits, but what is happening now? Let's think about, I'm sorry, those are the solar arcs in the green, but the transits are really important now because again, we have Saturn and Uranus in fixed signs, and they are triggering this natal Sun square Uranus opposite Saturn in fixed. So we've got Saturn is moving here through Aquarius. We've got Uranus moving through Taurus. You can see it's getting very close here to the ascendant, transiting Uranus close to the ascendant. There's going to be some sort of revolution. It's going to get tense. There's going to be a lot of upheaval coming to Austria. There is going to be hell to play, so they're not going to take this lying down. And yeah, so Saturn here in Aquarius, Uranus in Taurus, both are affecting the planets here in Scorpio and your ascendant in Taurus, and it will be affecting that as well. Now let's have a look at transiting Pluto, which is the end of Capricorn. I don't believe it's too busy at the moment. Look. That's not doing too much at the moment. Just to say that in World War II, we had a Jupiter-Saturn-Uranus conjunction all in Taurus, which I am going to talk about in a later vlog, that times of huge upheaval and problems in the world have always been associated with major conjunctions in Taurus. So there, back in World War II, 1940 it was, we also had that theme of Taurus-Uranus-Saturn conjunction with Jupiter. Right now, we don't have a conjunction, but we still have the Saturn and Uranus kind of moving in lockstep in these two signs, squaring each other, influencing the planet here in Scorpio. Okay, let's have a talk. We have solar arc Venus conjunct Moon. Now that seems a positive sign, Venus being the chart ruler. And I know Venus is in Scorpio, so it has a kind of revolutionary flavor to it. Conjunct the Moon, representing the people, and the Moon is natally conjunct Uranus. So that seems to me a signifier of something that could be quite fortunate, something moving in the right direction. What we've also got is Saturn here, solar arc Saturn on the North Node. This is a time of reckoning, a time of karma and fate. So this plays into the history of Austria. It's almost Austria's chance to redeem itself, to cancel out the bad karma related to what happened last time, and embracing of this whole thing. Maybe this time they are going to learn their history. So that's rather good. I just want to see, no, transiting Neptune wasn't doing particularly much, so we don't need to talk about that. I would like you to take a look at where Pluto is. Solar arc Pluto here in Libra is square to the midheaven in Capricorn. Almost exactly. Could that mean the fall of the government? Could there be enough pressure to take the whole government down? Well, I think it's certainly possible. And although we do know that for most of next year, Saturn and Uranus will be continuing to trigger the square. So it's going to continue to be tricky this year, but I think the Austrians have got this. Venus seems to be really helpful here. If they can just keep at it, well, anything can happen. We also have Mars solar arc here in Aries, and that'll also be moving to get in the orb of squaring that midheaven as well. And Mars is squaring Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter, the sign of communications, seems to bode well for getting the message out there, waking people up. Jupiter does rule the 8th, so there could be a financial knock-on, but that does also seem to indicate to me, because the 8th house of change, that there could be some fundamental change here. So people could really get to grips with this and rip the heart out of it and change the trajectory for the better. If you look here, solar arc ascendant, sort of conjuncting Saturn in the 5th, representing, you know, the ruler again. So again, something about the leadership changing. So it seems to me there's a lot of food for thought in this chart. There's a lot of opportunity. There's everything to play for. I think we can be very positive about it. I definitely want to come back to the chart of Austria to visit it again, but I think there's enough impetus in here from the planet to indicate that both protest, direct action, political action, all could lead to an overthrow of the current system. As I say, plenty of energies to work with, some positive energy there with Venus coming along, and definitely, like I say, the Saturn being triggered, it shows that people have got the determination almost to go through with this, and to Saturn, as I say, Saturn opposite Uranus being triggered. Come on, guys, you've got this, you can take this. So come on, Austrians, let's keep moving forward with a lot of confidence. You've got everything to play for in this chart. It's not over. It's not looking too good for those in power. They haven't got you absolutely collared yet. And look, obviously this has got to go through the courts, and previously there was some quite good decisions by Austrian courts during this whole COVID era. So it's highly possible that the courts are going to throw this out. Obviously people are going to bring human rights actions. People can take it to the European High Court. There are going to be challenges. I think this is bluff. This is pure desperation. They're doing it because they think people will get so scared that they'll want to be in a good position come next February. Funny that it's February when, you know, it's coming up to square all these things as well, that they're bringing that mandate in. It'll be probably in February, squaring up all this square. But I think this can be a transformative time for Austria, and it could lead the way, and certainly ripe for evolution. But like I say, the courts could definitely have a very important role to play, particularly, look, the ascendant here, conjunct Saturn. Saturn rules the 9th house, which is also the ruler of the midheaven, but the rule of the 9th house of the law. So I think the courts are going to swing into action here and put the brakes on this, although the government will keep coming back and trying to do more ways of coercing, because, you know, this whole thing with the Saturn and Uranus will continue for a lot into next year, triggering that square. But on the other hand, I think it's going to be a battle. I think this is a sign of weakness. It's a sign that they're losing control. It's a sign that the only thing they're able to resort to are the most heavy-handed techniques, which are going to wake more and more people up, and are certainly going to get people in the court, get the courts engaged. The lawyers are going to have to wake up here, and definitely something could happen. So feeling rather hopeful about Austria's chart. This is a strong, determined country. They are going to wake up. Lots going on there in the 3rd house. They've got the intellectual capacity and the communicative ability to bring this whole thing down. So go Austria.